Huntington Hotel in sunny Southern California. This podcast, of course, is Tennis Pal Chronicles, and we're sponsored by Tennis Pal, the best app to find people to play with. Visit tennispal.com to download the app today. We have a very special guest today with us on the podcast. I'm really excited to interview my friend Mark on the podcast. Mark is the author of The Gift is the Giver, Chronicles of the 21st Century Decade. Is that right, Mark?
The Gift is to the Giver, Chronicles of the 21st Century Decade. Yep.
Awesome. And please say your last name for me so I don't butcher it.
Gozonsky.
Gozonsky, just like it is spelled.
Exactly.
Well, his writing has appeared in the New York Times, The Sun, and the Lit Hub. And Mark's essay, Gritty All Day Long, is anthologized by Norton and also appears in Best American Sports Writing. My gosh, that is huge. I had no idea I was talking to someone so huge in the writing world.
Oh, as famous as they come.
I mean, I read the Norton anthology in college. Still have it on my shelves. In fact, I was an English major in college.
Well, I'm not surprised. How'd you like it? How'd you like being an English major?
Oh, it was great. I thought it was supposed to be something else, somehow was programmed as an Asian American to think I was supposed to be a doctor or scientist or something, but I was just terrible at it. I got a C in chemistry, and I said, that's not good.
But C stands for chemistry.
Yeah, that's right, C for chemistry. But when I talked to my counselor, she said, well, what do you love? And I said, well, I love reading and writing. So she said, well, why don't you pursue that? And I focused on English and literature and loved it. Loved every minute of it. It's been very useful. I speak English every day.
How do you like that?
Oh, Valerie is just joining us right now. My awesome co-host. Let's see if I can tag her in here.
Hi. It worked.
All right, we are back. Welcome my awesome co-host and the Laver Cup veteran, Valerie Garcia. How are you, Valerie?
Hey, Philip. I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. You just finished playing tennis this morning, didn't you?
I did. Yes. Went well. It went well. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let me introduce you to Mark Gozonsky.
Hi, Mark.
I was completely amazed. Howdy, Valerie. How are you doing? How'd you?
Super happy to meet you.
Likewise. I hear that you're a girl drummer.
You heard right.
What do you rock out on the hardest?
Probably classic rock, some Zeppelin, maybe
Nice.
some System of a Down or something. Are you a musician?
Very, very nice. I've always been an avid listener. I just started drumming as my COVID thing, and I've always been feeling it, and I'm always encouraged because my wife says I sound good, and I think that's a very high compliment.
Nice. It's good.
Well, that's the kind of wife you want, right? Someone who's going to really encourage you in your passions.
Absolutely. She encourages the tennis quest. She's always very supportive of my being out and about and traveling on the bus for 4 hours a day.
Well, speaking of your wife, you guys live on the west side of Los Angeles, right?
Yes.
Same state as Valerie and I are in. And you also are working on your next book, which just happens to be your quest to play tennis on every free public court in Los Angeles, right?
That's exactly right. This is a new career thing for me. I retired from being a public school teacher last spring. And sometime over the summer, my daughter said to me, Dad, you should play tennis on every public court in Los Angeles. And I thought, that's crazy. And then August rolled around when, school started up again. And I was like, you know what I should be doing right now? I should be playing tennis on every single public court in Los Angeles. And and I set forth, and it's just been really joyous, the entire process. I especially after I play. I know, Valerie, you just got done playing. But after I play, I'm just so psyched about the whole thing.
That's so awesome to hear. I love hearing other people who are psyched about tennis. I wasn't feeling very great this morning, and almost I was like, I don't want to go, but you have to go. You'll feel better when you're there. And because it was kind of early start time. And of course, as I'm driving in my driveway on my way home, I'm just thinking like, oh, I'm so happy I went, Just feels so great after.
Part of my quest is I write a letter to a friend or a family member after each of these things, and I'm just so exhilarated in these letters. Like I read them later, I'm like, dude, you were exhilarated, and I think I think that's real. I'm just all for it. I think that it's such an important part and an overlooked and underrated part of life is to generate delight for yourself and others. And I can't guarantee that playing tennis with me is 100% delightful, but I'm having the time of my life.
That is so awesome, Mark, and that's what we're all about here on the Tennis Pal Chronicles podcast is the passion of tennis. So can you tell us a little bit about your tennis career and how it started, where it came from, and how it infected your life?
Yes. A lot of this quest, I think, is a testimony to my family. Like, I learned tennis from my mom and dad, mainly. Like, I remember playing with my dad, and, he was very serious about it. He really came at you with the first serve and the second serve. And, this was back in 1972. So I really think this is like the 50th anniversary of my being a tennis player. So my dad taught me to go hard. My dad did not fool around on the tennis court. And so that was really an important thing. And my mom taught me a lot of things. One of them is not to throw your racket. Because I remember once we were at Winston Churchill High School in San Antonio, Texas, and I must have flubbed something, and I tossed my racket, and she was like, "That's it, we're done." And we were done. And I don't think I've thrown my racket ever since. I've had other misbehaviors which I've tried to tamp down, but I've never thrown my racket ever since I was about 12 or 13 years old.
Wow. Have you ever heard the Roger Federer story where his dad left him at the tennis court when he was a child? And I believe he gave him some francs to take the bus back home. But he said, hey, if you don't stop throwing a tantrum, I'm leaving.
What'd he do?
In general, Roger Federer had a pretty bad temper when he was young, and he would even cry when he lost, and he would throw his racket and, just had a terrible temper tantrum when he lost. And his father said, hey, that's it, none of that. If you don't change your ways, I'm just going to leave you at the court. And so apparently he left him, I think it was 5 francs on the table, and his father, Robert, went home. And so Roger had to, take the francs and go home on the bus by himself. And he remembers that as kind of one of the turning points for him, to remember that his bad behavior has consequences. So it was a really great story.
I haven't heard of that. Have you, Mark?
I have a lot of tennis fandom to catch up on. I've always been a baseball fan. If we're allowed to talk about that on your podcast, but
no, banned, no baseball.
Somebody at tennis this morning, when I hit a serve that was like, it didn't even make it in the court, and somebody said, "Do you play baseball?"
Yeah, I get a lot of comparisons to a baseball player when I'm playing, and I take it as a compliment. So anyway, yeah, my storied career. I've won 2 trophies. I don't know, you didn't mention that in your intro, but over the course of playing tennis in Los Angeles for 20 years, I've garnered 2 trophies. I got one playing over at Rancho down near Dorsey.
Wow.
Yeah, me and Clint. Hey, Clint, we came in 3rd in some tournament, and I snagged a trophy for that. And then I was on a USTA team this past summer. Court Justice. We went to sectionals, so I got a trophy for that. So
That's
just
a
about
great name, Court Justice.
Court Justice is pretty good. So I rack up. I'm on a pace to rack up about a trophy per decade, and I'm pretty proud of that. I like the look of a trophy.
Did your daughter ever tell you how this idea came for her, or do you guys talk about that?
Yeah. She's taken up tennis too, which makes me grin from ear to ear. and
cool.
she lives up in the Bay Area. So she was thinking, like, I'm going to play tennis on every tennis court in the Bay Area because in certain ways we're alike.
Our next interview, I guess.
Yeah, right. But I don't know. She passed the idea along to me, and I added the twist that to get to these courts, I have to take public transit or ride my bike, because it seems very planet murdery to be like driving by myself to all these far-flung courts. So a special part, and I think one of the things that makes it really so delightful to me is these journeys that I take. I feel like every day I set forth on an odyssey, especially when I'm playing in places that are far from the west side of LA.
Yeah.
But like I was playing in Monterey Park at the end of last week, and it was like 2 hours there, 2 hours back, and the whole time I was just like a pig in a pig's favorite substance, like looking out the window of the bus, watching Los Angeles unfold, and Los Angeles has its beauty, Los Angeles has its squalor. I think this is it seems like this is an especially dire time in Los Angeles history, between the housing crisis and the drought. And one of the things that feels important to me, and I guess one of the things that feels important to me about this quest is kind of bearing witness for Los Angeles, because Los Angeles has been really great to me as an adopted hometown. This is where I've spent 30 out of 31 years of my marriage. This is where me and my wife raised our daughters. This is where I had my career as a teacher. This is where I've played a ton of tennis. And it just seems like Los Angeles is really kind of down on her luck at the moment. And there's a part of me that just wants to be out there. And, I can't like one guy, like solve all these problems. But I remember from my teaching days, this idea of just being a witness to what's going on and like being there and showing up. That, I don't know, it feels like in some like, micro way that it's making a contribution, and or at least I'm like getting out and being among the people. And I think that's really important to me, because I've spent a lot of time in my backyard just swatting wiffle balls and oranges over the trees in my backyard. And that was fun, but it was also like super private. And this new adventure is just so out there in terms of meeting people. I've met people from all over. I met people from Jordan. I met people from Siberia. I was playing with a guy from Kazakhstan the other day. I really love that. I really love that connection.
Definitely one of the best parts of Los Angeles is the diversity that we have here. As you're entering into all of these different communities, I'm sure you're really exposed to that. So let me recap. In your quest to play every tennis court in the Los Angeles area, public tennis court, you also have committed to only getting there by public transportation or bicycle, and you also are writing a positive letter after every match. Is that right? Did I get that right?
I do. I'm filling up folders, or not folders, but binders, which I think is very important in a writing practice, that you be like accruing paper. And I'm on my third binder already. And I'm really super thrilled about this. I'm starting to get letters back from people. I like it when people like email me back or text me like, got your letter. But to actually, like, people are starting to like actually sit down and write a letter back to me, which is just beyond, I can't even open them. I'm just like too thrilled. I think I might, sort of transmogrify if I actually open these letters and start reading them. But they're there, they're waiting for me, and it's really thrilling. I really feel very pleased to be supporting the U.S. Postal Service, another institution in a time of dire need. So
that's down on its luck.
It is.
I mean,
wow, that is so cool. Incredible to get a personalized letter from someone in the mail that is not actually spam or advertising, right?
It's flabbergastingly joyous.
What a treasure that is. Valerie, we'll have to start writing to each other. This is such a genius idea.
I was just thinking that now I'm going to totally steal it, Mark. And every time I play tennis, which is basically Sunday mornings, I'm going to come home and write a letter.
Yeah, because
That's a great practice.
channel some of that glee and joy that we get. Like, let's use those endorphins to power. I don't know, just like put it out there, because there's plenty of sorrow, and all that stuff is real. There's plenty of sorrow and sadness and despair and all that. But if you're feeling great because you just played tennis or you just rode on a bus for 4 hours across Los Angeles, why not capture some of that and share it with somebody? That seems to me like that's a worthwhile use of time.
I think it's pretty amazing that after 4 hours on a bus, you still have the joy. I'm impressed.
A friend of mine, actually, one of these guys who wrote me a letter, he asked me as we were getting to the end of last semester, he's like, what are you going to do with all your energy? Because you put a lot of energy into teaching. I was like, that is a really good question. And I think, 4 hours of public transit and a couple hours on the court and a couple hours of writing, that's getting there. It's starting to get there. I think I'm going to add another element to the quest, though. Are you ready for the next element?
Let's hear it.
Hit up a public library, like the nearest branch library, so I can go and like investigate these questions that are starting to accumulate. Like I passed by this huge power station on Venice and Fairfax, and I must have passed by this place getting close to 1,000 times in my life, and I'm like, that's really big. Every time I go by, I'm like, that's a really big power station. But I started thinking, like, well, where's that power come from? How is that power generated? And as a retired person now, I have time to look into that, and I think that it's perfectly viable to like find out where's the nearest branch library to all these courts I'm playing on, and go like find out what books they have on electricity, and sort of look into it, as opposed to, because my fear is like that I'm just like skimming across the surface as I go, like looking at Los Angeles out a bus window or over the handlebar. I hope I'm not going over the handlebars of my bike, but as I'm passing by on my bike, it's all very like here and gone. And I want to develop a closer relationship with the city in the course of this adventure. And I have a feeling that going to libraries might be a way to just like get smarter. Like Philip, you and I talked about being English majors at the top. So I think just going to these branch libraries will be good for investigating things like, how does Los Angeles get its power, or all these other questions. And I think it's also a way, I don't know exactly how to phrase this, but I'll just speak from the heart here. It's a way to connect, or at least bear witness with homelessness, because I know that one of the services that libraries provide nowadays, in addition to information and books, is services to unhoused people. And I just have a notion that perhaps that'll extend my relationship with this dire crisis to be like, wow, that's really heartbreaking. To be like, I don't know what the other side of that, I don't know what deepening my relationship or my response to the housing crisis in Los Angeles would be. But I just have a notion that perhaps spending a little time in branch libraries would help me figure out that question.
Oh, I love that idea. I think that is so super, Mark, and I love libraries. I think there's a lot of treasure there for people to find. So let's take it back to your first ever court appearance in Los Angeles, the beginning of your quest. What was that like?
The first court I played on my life, or the first court I played on the quest?
On the quest. The first court you played, first tennis moment.
Yeah, it was great. It was on the court at Griffith Park, and I know there are a bunch of courts in Griffith Park. These are the courts that are closest to the merry-go-round.
Oh yeah, the two courts under the trees in the park.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this was my first one. I rode my bike all the way from Mar Vista out to Griffith Park, which,
oh my God,
I know it's not good for my tennis game. I can tell you that much. I'm a bit winded after a 15-mile ride. But anyway, I get out there, and the guy who I was playing with was actually there. And I just thought, like, that is so great, because Los Angeles is pretty prone to flakiness. But no, he showed up, and he was super friendly, like right off the bat. He was telling me all about playing tennis with his father-in-law, or his, I guess I'm jumping the gun there, but with his girlfriend's dad, and how his girlfriend's dad loved playing with him because he had a good game, and he'd never liked any of her boyfriends before, but this new friend of mine was like, he got in with the family and it was all good. And I was just like, wow, I've known you for a minute and you're really getting into some important stuff.
So I guess tennis made him more palatable to
there
his
you go.
father-in-law.
There you go. And why not?
But how did you actually meet him? Because it sounds like you didn't know him before you met him. What was the actual process of connecting, and what medium are you using to connect to people?
Well, this whole quest has been a great triumph of social media for me, because Facebook has been great. There's the Facebook Tennis Players in LA page, and I found dozens of people to play with off of that.
Oh yeah, shout out to Sophia, who's the admin for that page. She's awesome.
Right on, Sophia. You're doing a great job. And that page is super funny. There's some really quirky people on there, and I just I've come across all these people from all over the world, or their origins are from all over the world, but they're just here on the court and somewhere in Los Angeles. So I use that.
So you go on Facebook and you post something that says, "Hey, I'm going to play at Griffith Park. Do you want to join me?"
I've been doing that. I mean, I try a couple different things. I try, I say, like, I'm right up front, like I'm a 3-5, because I think there's there's definitely a certain part of it's completely rational. Like, you want to play against someone that you're matched up with, who matches up well with you in terms of your skill level, because it's more fun to play against somebody where you match up well. So, like, I'm a 3-5, which means basically I'm intermediate. I'm okay. I'm not great. I don't have any pretensions of greatness in tennis. So you play against somebody else who's roughly a 3-5. And what else do I say? Oh, I say, like, what part of town I'm looking to play in. Like, the last couple of weeks, I've been looking to play out in Monterey Park, because I noticed, I was getting up into the valley pretty well. I had gotten down into Torrance and Redondo pretty well. But
wow. Let me just name off some of the places, because you can actually go to Mark's website and you can see that there is a lot of places that he's already played. Yeah, and so give a shout out to your web page so that people can find you there. So much good information.
Oh yeah, Centro de Gozo. That was my friend Mike Downey's suggestion. I was playing with him pretty early on, and he was like, "Hey, I hope you're writing about all this stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, I am. I'm writing letters to everybody." He's like, "No, you should have a website. You should call it Centro de Gozo, and you should write about all the courts you're playing on, and then you should go find the nearest taco truck and write about it." So I thought that was brilliant. And Mike is he's a very formidable marketing talent. So I was like, if Mike says so, I should do it. So I do.
Yeah, and it's so great that your blog details all of the places you're visiting. You take pictures. There's so much information. For instance, North Hollywood, Santa Monica, Marine Park. So many places that you've listed on your website. There's a little map there that you've added too, which is really nice. Some of the places you played in the Valley: Cal State Northridge, North Hollywood Rec Center, Van Nuys Sherman Oaks, Balboa Park, Encino, Charles Wilson in Torrance, Holly Park, another Holly Park, but different spelling in Gardena.
It's confusing. And I think there's a third one too. They just like the sound of Holly down in Hawthorne.
Redondo Union High School also, so you're including high schools.
Not really. I let that one go because I really enjoyed the company of the person that I played with. And, it's it's somewhere between a little and a lot. It's like self-indulgent when I meet these people. And they're like, hey, I just want to play tennis. And I'm like, hey, I just want to play tennis, but it has to be on a court that I have never played on before. And they're like, what? And I'm like, no, I'm on a quest. And they're like, okay. So this person just wanted to play at Redondo Union, and so I played with her. But I'm not, there's this list of about 512 public courts in LA. And I think we can safely subtract about 100, because I don't really intend to like show up on all these high school courts and be like, let's play tennis, you know.
Well, a lot of them are closed campus too. It's hard to
As well they should be.
Yes, they should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
You as a teacher know.
Yeah, right. So the high school courts are off. So I think you know, if you subtract the high school courts, there's somewhere around 400, and I've played on about 55-ish of them. So this is gonna keep me occupied for another 2 years.
Wow.
You know, if I have the strength and ability and mobility to keep doing it, and I really try not to take that for granted. And yet another thing that kind of, I don't know, at least it inspires me, is that I feel like it's a really good use of my physical ability at this stage of my life, because I'm 61 years old. You know, I feel really, you know, truly blessed that I can just like bounce out of bed at the crack of dawn or before the crack of dawn a lot of times and go off to like Valencia and go play tennis with somebody, and then, you know, haul myself back and still be, you know, able to go walk my dog at the end of the day. You know,
that's so great.
That is a real gift. And I think that, you know, being active in this way is a form of honoring it. At least I feel like it is.
I'm so impressed with how positive you are, and you are sharing so much inspiration. You've already inspired us, and you've inspired Valerie to start writing letters, so that's very cool. But I'm sure that there's a lot of interesting, weird, and kind of stories full of drama in your journey as well, because that's also part of LA, so we'd love to hear some of that.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind when you mention that is on public transit. You know, most of the time public transit is just A-okay, and everybody's minding their own business and just, you know, going where they're going. But it does serve a lot of people who are down on their luck. I remember I was coming back from someplace one time, and this guy gets on, and he looks very uncomfortable in his skin. And speaking of the skin, he's like super facially tattooed, like spiderweb tattoos all over his face. He's also changing seats a lot, and I'm like, you know, one of my options in case of you see somebody who looks really pretty out there is just like get off the next stop, because there's going to be another bus coming along any minute now. So I was thinking maybe I'll just get off at the next stop. But I noticed this guy also had a mask on, so I was like, you know what, he's kind of aware, you know, so let's give him a chance to settle down. So we ride along, he does settle down, and he falls asleep, and a little while later he wakes up and he's like, is this bus going to Artesia? I was like, no, man, this bus is going to Santa Monica. He's like, damn, I live in Artesia. How am I going to get home? I was like, well, let me look that up for you on the map. So come on over, you know, let's take a look. And I was like, no, you got to go back. You got to go back over to, you know, take the same bus back to Flower Street, and then you take whatever bus it was down to South Bay, and that'll get you towards Artesia. And we were fist bumping and peace sign flashing, and he got off the bus, and I don't know what happened to him after that. But I really felt, I felt like the Catcher in the Rye. You know, I felt like I was, I don't know, out there, a vigilante for helping mentally ill people find their way home.
Wow.
which is just a perfect job description for me at this time in my life. Oh, for sure.
What about the most interesting?
Well, my friend Timothy is such a great guy. He loves to play with the non-dominant hand. Like, I knew the moment I saw his ad on Facebook, or I don't know that it's an app, but he was like, I'm looking for somebody to play with their non-dominant hand at Hernan Park. I'm like, I am right there with you, brother. So we play left-handed. we play left-handed sometimes, and then we play right-handed. We're roughly well matched. I think he's got the edge on me, but he's a great guy. I really like because I feel like I don't have to put up my like vocabulary guard on with him. Like I can throw down like whatever like highfalutin word I want. And he's like, yup. He's also Valerie. He's a musician, so I can like go in, as I often do. I often like will just talk about how much I love Ringo Starr's drumming. He's like, yup. So
Nice.
yeah. So
I was gonna ask actually if you ever switch your drum set up to play lefty, because I used to love to do that.
Yeah, I think you're well advanced on me. I'm just at the point right now where I can start to incorporate the tom-toms a little bit. Like I kind of figured out that they're tuned differently, and just like whatever agility is required to get off the snare and like dart over to those other drums from time to time. But I find that all those session musicians from the 1970s songs that I play on are super forgiving, and they never miss a beat. Like Johnny Strikes Up the Band by Warren Zevon is not going to change. So if I have a stick click, or if I even drop the sticks, those guys just carry on, and I can catch up with them the next time I hit play.
Nice. When you are you doing LA County? Is that the geographic?
Yeah, because there's some courts in Compton that I really want to hit. I've heard tales of there being some really good walk-on scenes in Compton, and I haven't gotten down there. And I really want to ride the K. That's one of the new metro lines, and I think I can wangle away over to Compton. But also, I want to get out to like your neck of the woods. I hear there are clay courts out in Diamond Bar. Is that true or just a rumor?
If there's clay courts in Diamond Bar, please sign me up. I just actually was playing in Diamond Bar this morning, not unfortunately on clay courts.
Uh-huh.
I only know of clay courts in Upland, and I'm not even sure if they're still there anymore.
It's worth finding out. It's worth a bus trip to Upland to meet.
Yeah, actually, they're green clay. It was like $21 an hour. It was great. I played on there once. I don't know if they're still there. But if you find out if this rumor's true, please let me know.
Okay, I will. I will for sure.
But I was gonna offer up my services. I'll definitely down to hit with you when you make it your way to the East LA region of LA County.
Oh, that's the first thing I'm doing. Once we're done talking here, I'll shoot you an email and we can get something going.
Sounds good.
I want to get out there. I want to get down to like Southgate and Commerce and Paramount, because I was facing that way when I was playing up in Sequoia Park just the other day. And I was just reading this article about the reshaping of the LA River, and about how the current sort of concrete embeddedness of the LA River has contributed to the parklessness of a lot of those communities that are just north of Long Beach. So I'm just curious, like, do they even have tennis courts down in Bell Gardens? And if so, what are they like? What kind of shape are they in? Do they have a strap on the net,
Tell us about the communities that you've seen, because you obviously are walking into so many different communities that maybe are entrenched on these courts, and they've been, living there. For instance, like in Echo Park, there's a huge
that was really interesting.
That's there. They bring a barbecue, they camp out on two of the courts and play every Saturday and Sunday, that kind of thing. Really fun guys.
Yeah.
Have you seen those kinds of pockets in Los Angeles?
I really felt blessed again. I ventured out to Monterey Park. I'm blanking on the name of the court there, but Alhambra. There was this big court in Alhambra. There's a statue of Ralph Kiner over there. But anyway, it was definitely like a scene. And like I've been playing, like I know a tennis team. I've been playing at Ladera Park for 20 years. Like, that's my home court. So I was definitely like just dropping in on these guys and women who've been playing there forever. And I was like, hi, I just took the bus for 2 hours. Here I am. But one of them like befriended me and introduced me to the rest of them. And I hopped on and played a little bit. And I think that the initial, actually one of the things that taught me just like how to get along with people who come from a different, demographic than I do is just like learning how to hop on to a walk-on tennis game over at Rancho, because those guys wouldn't always necessarily be like the most inviting people in the world. And like, especially early in my career, sometimes the game would shift, like I would show up and be like, who's got next? They'd be like, oh, well, we just started, when it was clear that it was like 5-5,
2 hours in.
Yeah, everybody was like soaking wet. It's like, oh, we just started. Or the opposite is like, oh, we're all leaving. But, that would be like some folks, but other folks would be like, hey, hell yeah, let's go hit. And especially when I first started playing tennis in Los Angeles after a long layoff, like I was hitting some real moon balls and I was hitting into the other court a lot. And I remember very, very fondly, with a lot of gratitude, the people who would be like, yeah, sure, let's go hit. I don't care. So anyway, the point of all this being just walking onto courts with strangers.
And just the communities that you've seen, like
like
if I was to map these courts, who plays there? Like, what are you seeing? What communities you're seeing?
Oh, I don't know. I saw there was definitely a big Filipino contingent over in Panorama City, and those guys also seem to sort of have dominion over the courts. And me and a new friend of mine were playing over there, and these guys were so funny. Nobody said like, "Hey, when you done?" or anything like that, but they all had their folding chairs, and it was like, I don't know, they were just like definitely like, you're on our court. Right. They were super nice about it, and then when we were done, they were like, oh, you got to come back, and we'll drink some beers and we'll hang out. And I was like, you got it. Like, I would go back there even before the quest was over, because they seemed like such great people who I would never, ever in a trillion years, unless... Yeah, I would never meet them if they hadn't just been hanging out there on the tennis court. Otherwise, I think it's more of like a one-on-one thing. Like I met this guy from Siberia. He was a really, really sweet guy. And there's, I don't hang out in Siberia. I don't know. I don't think I ever would have met him. And just like hearing some of his backstory, which... I don't feel like even, talking with y'all and writing in my blog, like, I don't think it's necessarily fair game for me to be, like, divulging all the interesting things that all these people tell me. Because they didn't, like, sign up to be interviewed or part of some, nonfiction, book that I'm writing. They just want to play tennis. So I try to be respectful of their privacy and the stuff that they tell me. Because people will tell you stuff, like, over a tennis net. Like, it just never fails to delight me and also just interests me. Like, the amount of guts that they spill, like, in the course of playing tennis, it's just like, wow, thank you for taking me into your confidence so readily. I'm going to really try to live up to the confidence that you have in me.
I think that says more about you, Mark, than the game of tennis, because I don't think I have those kinds of conversations. I'm just playing tennis. But I think it's neat that people look at you and feel that openness and, the kindness to share.
Well, right back at you, Philip.
No, I'm saying I'm not having those kind of conversations.
Oh, you're not? Oh, well, because you're teaching them. Like, I'm the opposite of you. Like, I refuse to coach anybody. Like, I play tennis with my daughter, who's just starting, and like after we played like for I don't know like 4 hours, I was like, have you ever thought of maybe, well, what do you think about like getting your racket back a little sooner? But it took me like hours before I would even bring it up, because like I'm this is not breaking news, but I'm not that good a tennis player, and it's like who is this guy to tell me how to play? It's like, I don't think so. Like, I got enough issues just getting the ball back over.
Well, and speaking of coaching and really kind of the state of tennis, I just finished a seminar where I attended UCLA talking about the state of tennis in Southern California. I mean, you have a grassroots view, an eye-level street view of what's actually happening out there. How would you define the state of tennis today after so many years?
It's great, man. There's so many great tennis players. Like I was on Court Justice last year, and we tore it up. We won the LA League, and that's a big city, Los Angeles, and we won. And then we got beat solid. Well, as soon as we hit sectionals, there were these other teams that were like, So as far as I'm concerned, there are great players all over LA. And so I think that's a plus. And then I see, I still head over to Rancho from time to time, and I see a fair amount of young folk playing over there. And Poinsettia, we couldn't get on the courts once over there because they were having lessons. So I don't know how tennis instruction is gonna, how that's gonna fare with the rise of pickleball. But as far as I can tell, people are still playing tennis, and it looks like you're plenty active. You got plenty of people to teach. So I don't know. There's no lack of tennis players in Southern California. I can tell you that much.
There definitely is a decline of tennis courts, though, in Los Angeles. I think it's really interesting that you're really at this reflection period doing this amazing quest to play all of these courts, because many of these courts may not exist in a few years. For instance, like the YMCA downtown, they closed those courts. The courts are still there, but just nobody's playing there. Wellington courts up in the valley are fighting to stay alive, and it's basically a real estate decision, right? Because the land is so valuable.
Well, I was playing up in Altadena a couple weeks ago, and it was like my first real look at pickleball. And I have to say, just in terms of highest and best use, there were 16 people having the time of their life on the court next to us that had been converted into 4 pickleball courts, and me and my pal Timothy were having the time of our life over on the other court playing tennis singles. But there were 16 people over there having a giddy good time, and the 2 of us. And, I think if you have an 8-to-1 ratio of fun, I would say let's get more people outside playing, having a good time. I'm not a pickleball hater by any means. There were 16 people waiting to play. So there's something too, and I think it's a post-COVID thing, or I don't know if it's really accurate to say post-COVID, but it's definitely epidemic related. I think the rise of pickleball, and I think also my quest itself is a reflection of all the time that we spent isolated and not really being able to get out. So you see all these people out there playing pickleball. I think that reflects the pent up desire for connection, and it wouldn't. And I think that, the thing I'm doing too, being able just to ride on the bus hither and yon, is also another thing where you're like, wow, I can get out, I can see people again. I really missed that over the last, 2 years.
That's so great. You really are out there connecting with people, and even as far as Altadena, that's incredible. It's so far from West LA.
It's nuts. It is. It's nuts. I read Don Quixote on the bus and the train. He's a very kind of problematic person to have as a role model, but there it is.
I think it's great that you are protecting the confidentiality and the kind of details of people's personal lives that they're sharing with you, but share with us, one interesting, maybe the most inspiring kind of event that you've had. I'm sure you've had so many.
I played with this woman from Jordan down at Charles Wilson Court down in Torrance. And she was like, hi, I'm from Jordan. And I don't know. She said, I'm from Jordan. You know where that is? Oh yeah, Jordan. It's over by Israel. She's like, it's over by Palestine. And I was like, oh yeah, I get it. Or I don't know that I necessarily get it, but it was definitely a perspective changer.
Sure.
And just a different, just snap into this woman's way of seeing the world. I was like, yeah, got it. And I think stuff like that, where you just, you just kind of swivel and you see it in a different way. I think that's really, really useful. That's useful for growth as a world citizen.
I'm really curious, Mark. One or two hand backhand?
I switch hands a lot to honor Coach Scott, who I played with at Ladera for years and years. He was a great athlete, such a great athlete. And he just got better and better. Like if you ever got up 40 love on Coach Scott, like you knew you were in trouble because he was going to come charging back. And he would switch hands. And I was like, that's the coolest thing I ever saw. And so I do that partly in homage to Coach Scott and partly out of kind of laziness. But when I do hit a true backhand, I go back and forth. I had some guy over in Alhambra say, oh, you should try hitting a two-handed backhand. So I do, and I don't know. I had some other guy in Santa Monica who was just like watching me hit with some guy. He was like, you've got a wonderful backhand. I was like, I do. It was like it was the Wizard of Oz. I hadn't even been asking for like validation of my backhand, but this guy was just like watching, and he was like, what a graceful backhand you have. I was like, thank you, sir. And ever since then, I've been like, yeah, I've got a very graceful backhand. So Valerie, whether it's one hand or two hand, I don't know what I'm doing really. All I can tell you is that it's graceful.
Fantastic. I can't wait to see it.
Likewise.
I do that out of laziness myself. And I always think of Sharapova when I do it because she used to do that at times.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, to save a point, right.
I gotta get the between the legs in there now.
Yes, the tweener. Make that happen.
Just be careful.
Yep.
Yes, you've got to tell us where that happens, which court in Los Angeles that happens. So I have to introduce you to the Tennis Pal app. Have you heard about the Tennis Pal app?
I just signed up yesterday.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I mean, Tennis Pal is the sponsor for our podcast, and it's just a super great place to meet people. It's very easy to meet them. You just sign up, put in your zip code, and you could message them and look for people to play with. We use it all the time, especially Valerie, right, Valerie?
I sure do. I love it. And Mark, kind of like what you said, tennis is great for anyone who loves tennis. But my favorite thing is, like you mentioned, it is fun when you match up really well with somebody's level of abilities. And so that's the thing that I really like, is that it shows the different levels that you rate yourself. And so I can find someone near me that matches up to, the kind of level I want to play with. If you're lucky, you can find someone better than you, because that's how we all get better, is when we find someone better who will play with us. And yeah, right. And thanks to those people who do, put up with lower ranked or lower leveled people. But yeah, I love that. And you can also ping out like a message, so it just like goes to everyone, which is definitely nice as well if you just want to hit like a large crowd of people. I kind of need that a little bit. I think more so for me being in like the suburbs. There's not like I guess I can't go to the tennis court any time of day, let's say, and just like find people. So it's very helpful, but I have to imagine in certain parts of LA, you might just be able to kind of wander down and there might be people playing.
That would be a useful list to compile of like where the good community-minded walk-on tennis courts. I know, Ladera and Rancho, you can generally walk on if you hang out long enough. But I kind of wonder about that, because sometimes I don't have a match lined up, and I'll just like go off somewhere, and if it turns out that no one's around, I'll just like put some blue tape down on the court. I'll like put X marks the spot and try to whack a ball so that it lands somewhere nearby. But a good list of walk-on courts, that would be good.
Yeah, that's a great idea. There was actually a project that I was a part of with USTA. It was by a couple of us on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee talking about mapping out some of the courts and communities in Southern California and talking about where people play, where people could walk on, meet kind of like the team leaders, the gatekeepers of these courts, and just make tennis a lot more accessible, introduce them to people, and show them where the communities are. Then, of course, the USTA pivoted, and unfortunately, we lost that initiative. But I still think it would be such a valuable tool. I agree with what you're saying. So helpful for people to find people to play with. And that's why I really believe in Tennis Pal and what they're doing there, because then you can connect with as many people like yourself as possible. And Valerie, too. Valerie and I just love meeting tennis people. We talk tennis all the time. Mark, do you watch professional tennis on television as well, or YouTube? Because Valerie and I are always talking about professional tennis as well to each other.
I think this is going to be my year. I just read. Hold on one sec. Here we go. I had to get this book off my shelf. I just read The Circuit by Rowan Ricardo Phillips. It's a tennis odyssey, and it's about his watching of the 2017 pro circuit from the Australian Open through the ATP. I think that's the last major that they play, or the last big tournament that they play. Anyway, I've never been a one to watch tennis at all. And when I would go down to Ladera, my friends would be talking about, hey, did you see the Cincinnati Open? And they're like dissecting all the shots. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But I think 2023 might be the year where I just really do watch these guys play. And I bet you it's going to really help my game and just give me another dimension of respect. I do, I watched Serena, like I had to. Like, how could you not watch Serena? And Valerie, I didn't, fly to Forest Hills the way you did to go see Federer in his finale. But I definitely did watch, and I was like, you know what? She's a really good player.
Probably the greatest understatement of all time.
Yeah. So, I can spot talent. No matter what.
You're good.
Yeah.
Well, that book sounds like a great Christmas gift, because we've been talking about our tennis gift guide that we're going to be featuring on the next podcast, because Christmas is right around the corner.
Oh, for sure. What a great read. This guy is a tremendous writer, and the way he dissects these kind of mid-ranked, I mean, they're the best tennis players in the world, but they're like, 25th best. And the way he like runs down their games and their psyches and their biographies, it's just like, dude, you are one intense tennis fan. And I really dig his obsession.
Sounds like a manual on how to play against these people.
Oh, I learned a lot. Well, I don't know if I learned a lot. I read a lot about tennis strategy. Learning is or applying, as we all know, is another thing. But it's a great read, and it's also pretty short. It's like barely 200 pages. So my kind of book.
That's super fun. Yeah, that sounds really good, and we'll definitely include it in our gift guide. Well, I think we're wrapping it up, but Valerie, do you have any last questions you want to ask Mark?
I was a little curious. I heard you say 2 years, kind of randomly, but is there like a calendar set up? Is there a rhyme and a reason, or is there like a map on your wall and you're just putting little pins as you hit each court?
It's like Don Quixote set forth, and you let Rocinante sort of determine where it was going to go. I definitely want to head more east because of geography, and because that's the part of town I live in. Like, I've hit a lot of the courts, although not all of them. There's a lot of courts over on the west side. I heard Douglas just got resurfaced in Memorial Park out in Santa Monica. There's plenty of courts out in Santa Monica and down in El Segundo and so forth. But for like the real adventures for me are like when I go out to Valencia, or when I would head out, when you and me hit Valerie out in wherever you are, Montebello. You don't have to give away your exact location, but anyway, if there's
East side.
yeah, east side, right?
I'm in the wonderful, fantastic city of La Puente, where our courts. I think Philip came and played with me. It's just cement with like paint on it. And
That's the best. That's the
actually,
best.
there's not even like paint like for the color of the court. It's just like painted lines.
It's where it's where the paint was.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it was fun to play there, though. We actually have 5 courts in Monterey Park. I know you played one of them.
I played the one in Lombard, which tragically I can't remember the name of at the moment. I played Sequoia, which is gorgeous, but
Sequoia.
big walk uphill. That was a stout walk, but a beautiful view.
Right. Such a beautiful park at the top of the hill. Yes. We're really proud in Monterey Park. We actually have 5 tennis courts in our city. Kind of an amazing benefit to living here. And we're so glad they haven't torn any of them down, you know. Although the courts right next to the City Hall is called Barnes Park, and they've really developed that into, you know, a pickleball specific court. So lots of people playing there specifically for pickleball.
Tennis advisors off to them.
Well, Mark, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, to hear your story, and I'm excited to play with you myself. I know Valerie will be able to connect with you as well.
So cool to hear from you. Love your quest, and can't wait to read the book.
Right on. Well, this has all just been a dream come true. Thank you, Philip and Valerie, for the opportunity.
Feel free to consider me to hit on one of the courts here that you haven't played on your quest in Monterey Park or Pasadena, Alhambra, or East LA. East LA is where a lot of our programs are for our nonprofit LoveSetMatch. So love to, you know, be your tour guide for those courts if you're still looking to do those.
Right on.
Yeah, and please check out Tennis Pal. Like you said, you just downloaded it. I think it's a great place to meet people and to play with them in their communities. And I think you'll have a great time meeting people on that app as well. And you would really love meeting the founder. She actually came from Iran when she was in her college years. Grew up playing tennis in Iran. Came over to the United States and played tennis pretty much all her life. She was an engineer, and she felt like it was harder and harder to find people to play tennis with, and so she developed this app specifically to just have a place to find people to play with. And, you know, it's just a wonderful resource for all of us. I feel like she's just like you, Mark, and Valerie and I just have a passion for tennis and really wants to just spread the love of tennis and the benefits. So, yeah, I think it's a really great story to check out. We actually did a podcast about her previously, so if you want to look back, maybe I'll send you that link so you can hear more about her and the interview that I did with her. Oh, our closing catchphrase, Mark, is "May all your serves be aces." So we say to you, Mark, may all your serves be aces.
Mil gracias.
Thank you again. And
Maybe some second serve
Thank you
aces in there
again.
too.
The second serve is going to be a wicked slice. I'm just telling you straight up. It's going to be a kick serve or a slice that could draw blood.
Nice slice. He's giving us his tells. Super. Well, we'll definitely be sharing your website and your information on our show notes. And thank you again for joining us on the Tennis Pal podcast. Take care.
Likewise. Take care.